nearing the end of my doctoral journey. I was ready to advance. I was, doing a heavy job search. I, of course, was seeking out wise counsel. So going to talk to a lot of different individuals I considered mentors. A lot of them were white women. Unfortunately, a lot of the individuals that I was seeking wise counsel from recommended lateral movement to me. Well, Lydia, we think you'll be great as X coordinator or X coordinator, right? I was already in the coordinator role. And what's interesting is in my work that I was doing, I was already doing assistant director level work, just not being paid for it. I felt like they always tried to hold me back when I was trying to elevate or advance myself.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee No Cream podcast. My name is Erin Braxton and I am the host for Coffee No Cream. Each week we come to you and we share our coffee no cream moments. Those are those things that happen to us Black women just because we are Black. And today we have a very interesting episode. We're going to be talking about promotions. And we're going to be talking about how challenging it can be for Black women to get promotions in corporate America. Now, I myself struggled with this when I was just starting out. I remember my first performance review, which I talked about in a previous video. And at the organization I worked at, I began as a traffic manager. And that was the role where you just kind of are the lowly man on the totem pole and you're running around in the agency and you traffic job processes from concept to completion. So we were made sure that we kept everybody together on the same page. It was just sort of like a runner throughout the agency. And the goal was to promote out of that position into an account executive role. And usually it took most people longer than a year, but less than 2 years. And I remember I struggled with getting that promotion. I think it took me over 2 years to get that promotion, but I got it. And at the time, I thought in the back of my mind it was probably because I was Black, but now there's evidence to substantiate that this is a common issue with Black women who are working in corporate. So I feel very passionate about this one and really helping people to navigate this because it is something that exists, it occurs. And we're going to be talking with Dr. Lydia Bullock today. Dr. Lydia Bullock is young. She's 30 at the time of the recording. By the time this airs, she, I believe, will be 31. So young, totally has her shit together. Doctorate, award-winning, rock star in the workplace, but really had to go against her employer's resistance to elevate her with a doctorate, with all of the degrees, with the awards. This is a real thing that happens. I want to read to you a few statistics. Now, you know, I like a statistic, okay? And I shared a few when we did the episode about performance reviews, but I'm going to share a few more when it comes to getting promoted. There's this whole concept. It's called the broken rung concept. And we're using the corporate ladder. So the corporate ladder, you climb the corporate ladder, you get to the top CEO executive level. And many times people think that the glass ceiling is the problem. It's hard to break through the glass ceiling. But for Black women in particular, the broken rung is that first rung on the ladder. That's the broken one because so many Black women struggle to get that very first promotion, just changing the trajectory of their career. So let me share with you some statistics that I found. So for every 100 men promoted to manager, 89 white women are promoted, but only 54 Black women. So that's huge. And it's not about qualifications. Black women ask for promotions at the same rate as men. And it's not about leaving. Black women don't quit more than men. So Black women are getting promoted at a much slower pace than white men and even white women. They're told things like they need to get more experience, while less experienced men get promoted. They are being offered lateral moves, which is what Dr. Lydia Bullock is going to talk about today. And they are just being passed over. They're praised, but passed over when it comes to getting promotions. So Lydia's story is right in alignment with that. Here's some information I got from leanin.org. So they are the ones who coined the terminology, the broken rung concept. And 54 Black women promoted for every 100 men in 2024. I think I said that in another episode. 58 out of 100 Black women make it to manager level. 49% of Black women feel race hurts advancement versus only 3% of white women. In a separate report on the state of Black women in corporate America, 26% are less likely to receive timely promotions, which is what I was talking about, which is what Dr. Lydia Bullock is going to talk about. And, that includes the other workplace biases and statistics. So I just wanted to share that with you. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Lydia Bullock because she's pretty awesome. Dr. Lydia Bullock and I have known each other for, I would say, almost 2 years. I met her at my trainer. I go to a trainer here in St. Louis and we do these group training classes. And she would just come in and she just was very quiet and just has this very sweet, calming presence. And she is just on her shit, okay? So let me read you her bio. Dr. Lydia Bullock serves as the Chief of Engagement and Belonging Officer for the Girl Scouts of Eastern Missouri. Dr. Bullock has dedicated her career to building spaces where everyone feels valued and empowered. And throughout her career, Dr. Bullock has worked on the front lines of change, from crisis intervention to serving as an advocate for underrepresented communities. Her work focuses on the charge for girl empowerment, gender equity, social justice, and access. I mean, that just says it all, but you're going to get to meet her in just a moment. Before we do that, please like, please share, please subscribe, get the word out about the Coffee No Cream podcast, where our only goal is to uplift and empower other Black women. So I'll see you over there in the episode. So welcome, Dr. Lydia Bullock.
Hello.
Hello. So glad to have you.
Happy to be here.
So I just gave like a really robust sort of resume for you. So break down just what you do every day, just make it in layman's terms.
Okay, so of course, just to reiterate, I work for the Girl Scouts of Eastern Missouri. I serve as the Chief of Engagement and Belonging Officer. Really thinking, if you think about engagement and belonging, thinking about diversity and inclusion, equity, belonging, accessibility, in that area of work. So thinking about providing access to girls who live in marginalized communities, accessibility resources for individuals who are disabled, a lot of work with our Black and Brown girls, and Girl Scout members. I work a lot with our volunteers, providing or sharing or creating resources for them to provide access to girls. A lot of work with our staff to ensure that they feel well equipped in providing volunteers and girls with diversity and equity and inclusion resources, with programming, camps, underrepresented populations, so many things.
So every episode we talk about our coffee no cream moment, and you've got a really, really good one that'll be helpful, I think, to people who are still in the development stages of their career and trying to navigate their way through. So to all of you all who are listening for the first time, coffee no cream moments are those moments that Black girls have that we know happen just because we're a Black girl, right? Or a Black woman. So I'm going to just let Lydia tell us about a coffee, no cream moment that she thought would be like beneficial to share with us. So give us the story.
For sure. So prior to me working in nonprofit, I worked in higher education, still working in DEI initiatives. But the difference in higher education is I was the only Black woman in a lot of spaces. In some spaces, I wasn't the only Black woman, but a lot of the spaces I was. So throughout my career, in higher education, I had worked, in the same position for about 4 years. And I was working full time as I was obtaining my doctorate degree from the same institution. So near the end of my doctoral journey, I was ready to advance. I was, doing a heavy job search. I, of course, was seeking out wise counsel. So going to talk to a lot of different individuals I considered mentors, and just well versed in that community of higher education. Also wanted to stay in education. So as I was conversing with those individuals, a lot of them were white women. And I looked up to them because I valued their knowledge. I worked with them very closely. They always complimented on my talents and my skills and how well I was able to connect with students, faculty members, and community liaisons. Like they always spoke highly of me. They always tapped on me to do a lot of the, a lot of the work around campus, a lot of the work, especially with our students, because I was able to connect with them so well. I was doing 1,000 jobs getting paid for one. Let's start there. So, as I was seeking advancement, unfortunately, a lot of the individuals that I was seeking wise counsel from recommended lateral movement to me. Well, Lydia, we think you'll be great as X coordinator or X coordinator, right? I was already in the coordinator role. I was looking to advance to, director level or even assistant director level. And what's interesting is in my work that I was doing, I was already doing assistant director level work, just not being paid for it.
So you're already doing the things, but you've been in this doctoral program.
Hmm.
I don't know how long the program was, but you know these people.
Yeah.
So these, okay, so you had never felt any kind of way up until you had come to this point in the program where it's time to talk about like how can I utilize my advanced degree, my doctorate,
Hmm.
how can I really make it work for me in my career. So you had like never had any hints or inclinations of any issues with these people. These are people that you've like fully felt comfortable with over the time of the program.
Absolutely. I did feel comfortable with them, so much so that I considered them mentors. And I had never had an issue with them because I worked closely with them. And I think it'll be important for me to name this. A lot of the individuals that I was seeking their wisdom from, they were vice presidents. I mean, they sat on the president's cabinet. So I was close with a lot of higher level people because of the type of work I was doing. Anytime you're doing any, diversity, equity, inclusion work, they hold you tight, right? Because they want to be able to talk about the things like, that they're putting in place or they're executing the initiatives that they're bringing to the university. So they keep the people who are doing their work tight to them. So yes, I was comfortable with them, and I was appalled a lot of the times when I would go to them and, talk about, okay, so I'm looking for my next, like my next movement. Um, and I was just so appalled. And a part of me felt like, well, maybe they want to just keep me at this level because they can't find anybody else to do this type of work the way that I do it. But that's still not fair because there are people who come behind me who are still equipped and able to do, if not better than what I did, especially if you develop them. So I was comfortable with them until I wasn't.
Okay, and one more question
For
before I
sure.
have you continue.
Yeah.
Um, what about your peers or your classmates or other people
Hmm.
in the program with you? I'm not really sure because I have a
Sure.
bachelor's degree and that was that, right?
For
So I don't
sure.
know how it goes,
Yeah.
but did you because I noticed this happened to you and this has happened to me as well.
Hmm.
This they got you doing like this and this and this because you can do it. You're juggling, you're doing all the things.
Hmm.
You're getting paid for one thing,
Right.
right? So, did you notice with some of your non-African American counterparts, they were being given those types of responsibilities, or did you feel like you were the only one being given that sort of load?
Thinking about like on the, the work level, my counterparts, I did see them getting other opportunities, but it was outside of the institution. But what I did
Okay.
notice is that they would bring in other individuals, for example, nepotism. So, oh, I know this person who's good at this job. Let me bring them in, right? Or it's kind of like one of the golden rule is not what you know, is who you know. So they would go to, schools on the East Coast, the West Coast, and bring different people in. And I'm just like, your talent, you have talent here. You have talent here, but you didn't, you don't tap on it. Or you play in their face and just want to keep them in that role. As I was going through my doctoral program, um, I will often get the comment from my white counterparts and sometimes from people who were higher up, like, "Oh, Lydia, why are you, going back to get your doctorate degree so soon? You're young. Why you have time?" And I feel very strongly you don't ever put a pause or a hold or tell Black women, especially, when to go do something. I'm single. I didn't have any children. I don't have any children now. So it was in my mind, what better time to do it when I have first of all, the access to do it. I, re- I
Absolutely.
received a degree from an institution where I didn't have to pay for it. And you telling me I shouldn't take advantage of that? So it's almost like I felt like they always tried to hold me back when I was trying to elevate or advance myself. You know what I mean? And I think that was just deep rooted in racism. I'm just gonna say it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't
Mm-hmm.
ever tell a Black woman what they shouldn't be doing, especially if they have the access and the opportunity to do so.
Like, absolutely, why not?
Right.
Why not? Right. Okay, so back to
Hmm.
the story
Yeah.
of you're trying to figure out what next after the program and what happened.
So, I was still in the same position. So when I graduated, I actually had an opportunity given to me by a Black woman to come and work for her in it's kind of like one of those big experiment programs where they it was like a grant funded program. They had a big opportunity and they needed somebody to serve as the program director. So a Black woman
Okay.
actually recruited me to come work for her. And I did that for a year at the same institution. Um, and I still wasn't being fulfilled. I still felt like I wasn't being used to my fullest potential. So that's when I began to heavily job search outside of education.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we kind of like covered it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of because it's like all kind of we're
Yeah.
working our way through the
Uh-huh.
story. So, like in those situations, can you like explain how you were feeling? Like, yeah, we know you thought it was racism. It was racism. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously they're trying to put you in a hole, and so like tell me like how you were feeling like in that moment, like in those moments when that happened to you.
Absolutely. I felt like that they were trying to keep me inside of a box. I felt defeated, honestly, and my confidence was robbed from me because it's one thing for you to tell me that I'm doing great work. You keep, you know, delegating tasks to me that are amazing opportunities. Because I don't get me wrong, my experiences in their role was absolutely phenomenal. I was able to gain like a host of experience. However, it was, I just felt like, are you just using me? Like, are you just using me for the work that maybe you don't want to do, that you know nobody else is gonna do? Um, and I just felt like I also went through a phase where I felt like my degree was pointless. Like you tell us we need these advanced degrees to serve an X role. I did everything that the system, that paper tells us to do, and I'm just like, is this just another statistic of a black person not being utilized to their fullest potential? Because I followed the protocol that they had set out for us, but it
You did everything like right. You did the
exactly.
things. You went da da da.
Hmm.
But well, we know God has a plan,
Yeah,
right?
he
So
does.
regardless of whatever they say, right?
Absolutely.
But I want to go back to how you felt
Mhm.
your self confidence, because
Mhm.
that was a big thing for me,
Mhm.
like in my career. Just over the years, just being passed up for promotions or told all these different things, and it really works on your confidence. So
Mhm.
you want to talk about that a little bit more, because I think that'd be really helpful for somebody.
For sure. So I think a big part of self confidence that I learned throughout that journey is self-advocacy. Because not only did they send me into a whirlwind, but I realized, and I'm almost ashamed to share this, but throughout my 4 years in that role, I never got an increase. I never got a raise.
No, you know what? I think about that too, because I've been in that same situation.
Mhm.
I've been in that same situation. And, my mom was a school teacher, a school
Mhm.
principal. My dad owned an auto body shop for years,
Mhm.
right? So we're not even coming from a background where
Absolutely.
we know we should advocate for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have nobody to like really model for me this game we're playing in these offices, in this office space.
Mhm.
So that's huge. But okay, but go on. Sorry.
And Aaron, I have a similar story. Like nobody, it's almost like nobody taught me to self advocate. Like I didn't know to do that. I just was excited
Mm-hmm.
that I was being used. I was excited. And, I think
Yeah.
about, and this is kind of veering off a little bit, but I promise it'll make sense. I think it goes back to love languages. And I think about how we tend to, excommunicate love languages even in our work, but it's a way to apply it. Because I think about how one of my love languages is words of affirmation. And when I tell you they affirmed me in their role, like my praises were always being sung for something that I accomplished, something that I did, a relationship that I made, a student that felt like, oh, I can make it here. That was always given to me. And maybe that's why I was so like, I guess just taken aback that I realized that after I had been in their role for 4 years, I never got a raise. Like,
Never got a
and I
raise.
was ashamed.
Did you have a review in that period?
Yes.
Did they
So
review you?
what's interesting, I did have a performance review. However, I will state this that when I was in that position, um, it was during COVID. So they had put a pause on merit increases because of the finances during that time. So they kind of put a freeze on providing merit increases for like 2 years. And I will also note this was kind of like my first career job. So I didn't really know what that looked like. Um, I will also state that when I was leaving, when I was transitioning out of that position, like heavy job searching, they offered me an increase and a title change.
Of course.
They offered it to me when I was leaving. And if you remember earlier, when I stated that a black woman had offered me a position in her big experiment program, they wanted me, I was competing. I had received the job offers within like maybe a week of each other. So it's almost like when they figured out that I was going to go work with this black woman who was giving me more money and a title change because I became a director then of that program. That's when they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to offer me that. And they put a rush on it. And I'm just like, you waited till somebody saw my worth and then you offer me something. That's another smack in the face. It reminds me of like when people say, oh, well, when you're in a relationship, um, they don't want you, but they don't want anybody else to have you.
Else to have you. Well, yeah. And
Mhm.
it's like you finally like the light bulb finally came
Mm,
on too.
right,
Right? Like you were it's like when you get somebody in any position
right.
or you're not paying them enough, right?
Hmm.
But everybody good that ever has worked for me, I'm like they're leaving me. One day they're going to leave me.
Absolutely,
They just they just
absolutely.
didn't want you to figure that out before you figured that out,
Hmm.
right? And
Absolutely.
and I think that's another thing. Like we would know depending on your background, but you always have to like jump around to get the money. At least that's been my
Exactly.
experience.
And to get where you ultimately want to go.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not going to be able to make those like serious salary increases until you got to
You
leave.
gotta
You got to
leave. You
go.
gotta go. Because I
Mhm.
will tell you, even when I had went to another position within the institution, I had to fight with HR for them to give me the money. I had to fight, and I can only wonder, like, do white people go through this, or is it just the black people? I had to fight literally to get the increase that I deserve. When I tell you we had to go through a vice president and it was a lot.
Wow.
Like my supervisor, who was the black woman, she had to
Mhm.
advocate for me to get that money, and they sent her through a whirlwind to get it to me.
Wow. Well, they wanted you apparently, so you got it.
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
did
All
for
right.
sure.
So, okay, so your takeaway is advocating for yourself. Your takeaway is and recognizing that also this kind of stuff was affecting your self-esteem,
Hmm.
right? So let me just ask you before I go one more question. How did you navigate your way out of it? Because I think we all, even everybody deals with sort of I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or
Hmm.
they have some questions about if they're they feel like maybe they're not worthy of, especially when you're not getting confirmed in your profession. So how did you start to navigate out of that? Was that after you got to the new position? Did you realize sometime during that position, did you start to experience like, hey, wait a minute, no, I am the shit. Wait, why
Hmm.
why is this like what?
Transparently, if I could go down memory lane for a minute, I would say maybe after 2 months after obtaining my doctorate degree, and this was maybe a month before I started the new position, it's almost like I automatically went into some sort of depression. Um, and I don't know because of what I had just went through with my doctorate degree, because that's an experience, you know. And I was working full time and going to school full time, writing a dissertation. So I would love to do some research about the effects that that has on you after completion and just what that looks like. But I went through like a journey of like my self-worth, like feeling valuable, feeling valued. Um I think decision fatigue, because I think that's something that we don't really talk about, especially if you've been in a position while you're going through school and you're seeking something new, having to make decisions like, oh, do I want to leave? Do I want to stay in this field? Do I want to not stay in this field? Do I want to move and go somewhere else across the country to pursue another opportunity? I think knowing when to leave and when to stay, decision fatigue, I think that was a thing as well. Um, but I went through a depression. And you asked me, how did I get myself out of it? I would definitely have, and these are all I statements, but I literally leaned on my faith in God. I did.
Absolutely.
I went through, it's almost like I went through some type of identity, crisis or identity shift, because I kind of went into a hole. Like nothing I just did worked out for me. Because again, I followed everything they told me to do. I got the experience, I got another degree, and I still wasn't, offered what I thought I was gonna be, offered in that process. So I really I had to lean on what I know, and that's my foundation, my faith in God. A lot of days praying, and I went through this for probably a year. a
Wow.
year.
You know, to your point though about like you're doing like a big thing or you have this big dream or
Hmm.
this goal, and there's always my like motto in life
Hmm.
is like always have something to look forward to, right? So you had this thing, you're looking
Hmm.
forward to it, you're like doing it, you're like going to be like Dr. Lydia Bullock and
Hmm.
everything like that. And then it's like you do all that and then it's sort of like what now,
Yep.
right? And I think cuz that happens like
Hmm.
to me, like I have a big event and then after the event you're like kind of high off of it but like oh, now I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
And that combined with, them not really supporting you
Hmm.
in trying to kind of continue the dream. So that probably had a lot to do with it too, because you're just like
Absolutely.
riding this wave, and then it's just kind of like,
Hmm.
now what? Yeah,
It was heavy on the now what, like what's next?
yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it just happens to me in everything I do.
Hmm.
Like everything, like from it's just like, what am I gonna do now? Because if you don't have those things to look forward to in life, it's kind of like, and you just didn't feel like you were being supported.
Right. And I will also say this too, Aaron, before we go on to the next question. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a
Mm-hmm.
part that people don't really speak about because of the grind culture. And I think social media as well has a big part of it. But the process also taught me patience, you know?
Right.
And I would say divine rest. And I say that because I worked my ass off. Like I worked so hard. I mean, I was the definition of late nights, early mornings. And my
Mm.
mom, which she was such a big part of my, the year of redefining what my life, was at that current moment. She always remind me, Lydia, you're going through a period of rest. Because my job that I took, you know, internally with the institution, it wasn't a heavy load, honestly. And
I
my
love
previous,
that period of
yes,
rest.
my previous role was a heavy load. Like I was always doing stuff while I was in school.
Yeah.
And my mom would just tell me, Lydia, use this opportunity to rest because I see where you're headed in the future. And I don't know if you will
Yeah.
always have the rest that you have right now. So that was also something that I held dear to me as well during the time of my, my downtime. My season of redefining is really getting the rest that I lost out on. And I'm gonna say this. This is a funny, just kind of a funny story. When I was getting my doctorate degree towards the end, so finishing up my dissertation, I would eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day. That was my lunch. And
Peanut butter jelly,
yes,
good.
I would eat it every day for lunch. And my mom was here for a kind of extended period of time. And she said, I cannot wait until my baby gets some rest because she keep putting the peanut butter in the refrigerator. And we don't keep our peanut butter in the refrigerator. She said she will always look for the peanut butter because she eats peanut butter a lot too. And she could never find it in the cabinet because I kept putting it in the refrigerator. I would put the jelly in the cabinet and put the peanut butter in the
Because you
refrigerator.
were
I was
tired.
tired. And she would always say, I cannot wait until my girl gets some rest.
Oh, that's so, you know what though? That's so
It
powerful. Like,
is.
honestly, like, because you go, 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 go,
Hmm.
right? And then when you don't go, 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 go anymore, these people have been working you like crazy.
Yep.
You've been doing this, you've been doing that, all this stuff. And then when you're finally kind of a little still, it's like you feel, I don't know, deflated.
Yep.
You get down. But
Hmm.
that's no, rest is everything. Rest is
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
So, what would you say? What do you say to what you would do differently if you had to like relive kind of this part of your, education career all over again? Would you do something different? Because it wasn't kind of like a moment. It just seems like it was like over a period of time
Hmm.
where this coffee no cream moment was it's very common, like the working, the supporting, the propping people up, being like the rock star, and then just not being compensated properly. They love to tell you, oh yeah, you're so great, you're so this, da, 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 da. But when it comes time to pay you, it's just like, so what would you do differently, do you think, in this situation? Or would you do anything differently?
That's a really good question. And also, let me just put this out there too. When they would, I mean, it wasn't even just verbal compliments. I won awards for my work, several.
Wow.
Um, so I just thought I would say that, like, it wasn't just verbal, compliments.
Yeah.
It was actual, tangible things.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but
That's amazing. I mean, I'm not surprised just
yeah.
from like, just observing you over the
hmm
last year or more. Yeah, like, of course you did.
Yeah, it was just I was just appalled that they treated me that way because I'm like, I got all this
Yeah.
experience. Like I did some stuff. And the things that I did, I had never heard of in my life. But to answer your
Yes.
question, um, I would definitely still gain every experience that I was able to gain while I was in that position because I'm telling you, the connections that I made, especially with the students, they still hold such a big space in my heart. I still talk to so many of them. I actually just talked to one
Aw.
about a couple of days ago, and they're all over the world. I mean, lawyers, doctors, occupational
Wow.
therapists, educators, all type of people. So I would still stay there and gain the experience. However, I would advocate for myself. I would advocate for what I what I need and what I want. Um, I would definitely try to build more of a community of supporters. Um, just a diverse community of supporters because I had many, don't get me wrong, but I think I needed people outside of the institution to help me navigate some of the political aspects of what I was going through. Because I didn't really seek any, advice from anybody outside of the institution. I did talk to, of course, the black people within the institution, and they would, of course, side with me. And some of them was going through the same things that I was going through. But I think I needed that outside counsel as well of just what to do and how to navigate that.
I think about it too because you're saying like you won awards and things like
hmm
that, and still being treated or handled in this way rocked your professional self-worth, your confidence.
hmm
Um, so going through, and this is, I think a lot of people can relate to this, right?
hmm
And even, me at my big age at this point, you
hmm
just like, okay, trying to take inventory and really just speaking truth into yourself because nobody else is going to do it. Once I was told, when you say advocate, one time I had a boss,
hmm
um, and I was working for Neiman Marcus and corporate marketing, and she told me I needed to be a better self promoter, right? But it's not always in our nature.
hmm
And then you see people out here promoting a bunch of bullshit, like
Seriously.
just like what,
hmm
and you're like, I can run circles around you, right? But
Absolutely.
we're just not conditioned to do that, right? So no, I love that. Like, and that's a big lesson. And I still think about her saying this to me. God,
hmm
that's been like, wow, that's been like 25 years ago,
hmm
right? And I'm thinking, like, still to this day, like, Erin, you're not a great self promoter. Like, you need to be proud of those things or whatever. So that's like a huge muscle skill. I think that people need to learn how to exercise,
hmm
because we're so used to, I think, as Black women, just working as hard as we do, harder than everybody else, like just figuring out a way when there's no way, just making shit happen,
hmm
that we don't consider that it's so extraordinary what it is that we do.
Absolutely. And I think it's even harder too when you're just, and I mean this in such like the most humble way. When I'm already a humble person. Like I'm already a
Yeah.
person that kind of hide behind like this shell of all the stuff that I have inside of me. So it makes it 10 times harder for me to go and try to advocate for myself, right? And I speak to the individuals who shy. I actually just read a post today on Twitter. The worst thing you can be in a workplace is black and shy.
Mm.
Um, and I resonated with that. And it's not so much that I'm shy, but I resonated with that because I'm humble, right? I don't say much. I speak when I'm spoken to, kind of like I'm a big observer. So I'm the person in a meeting that's quiet the whole time. But when something comes to me, something brilliant, I say something brilliant. Everybody like, ah. Or, the person who don't talk, they all turn around and look at you like, Lydia got something to say. Let's everybody turn around and see what she about to say. Um,
That's kind of powerful, though,
yeah,
actually.
it's like, slow to speak. Um, but it's hard being humble in the workplace because when you are, especially during a performance review time, because you're trying
Right.
to, you think of everything you do, like, and you write everything out, and you see all that a
Yeah.
person, does and everything they've executed, right? Um, but when you're a humble person, when you don't boast and brag, but you see the person and how hard they work, it's still it's hard to advocate for yourself. It is
Right.
because you want
So
people
what
to
have you
see it,
done?
you know?
So what are you doing? How are you advocating for yourself? Like some tips that you could give
Well,
people.
I will not be I won't falsely sit here and say that I've gotten better at it. Um it's something that I am actively still working on. And if I can be honest, like even when it comes to um something as simple as what people call me, I don't make people call me Dr. Lydia Bullock. Like I don't make
Mm-hmm.
people say Dr. Bullock. I still cringe when I hear it a little bit. Um, but I think it's just the little girl in me who was overlooked um as a child that still has some healing to do because I tend to hide behind every single thing that I do. It never fails. I hide behind my accomplishments. Um, and I think it's just also a guilt of success. And I don't think that's talked about a lot in our culture because right now we're in the girl, hype yourself up, girl, do this, girl, do that. But we don't really talk about those who really struggle with making it out, especially when you come from you know, a place where a lot of people don't make it out of.
Well, and a lot of people, like I said, are out here hyping themselves up on some
On
bullshit, right?
bullshit.
Like, you know, like as opposed to like somebody who's actually accomplished something.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I think, like what did this dating coach I watched, he's
Hmm.
like, you need to date with the audacity of a white woman.
Oh gosh.
So it's the truth though,
I
but they have
believe
some
it.
audacity. Do they not have some audacity,
They
right?
do.
So I think it's a struggle for many of us as black women just because of the way we're received in the world to kind of show up like that. Like, listen, I'm here, I deserve to be here, I deserve to be heard. I'm the shit, I'm better than you. Like we kind of know it, but it's not in our nature to say it. And I think
Hmm.
it has a lot to do with our history,
Absolutely.
parents, our grandparents. I
Yes.
mean, I watch my dad to this day. It's just like he's sort of very confident man
Hmm.
in many ways, but put him in a room full of suits or something, like he's not that. That's not like, so you kind of shrink, like you just, we're just, it's not something we were raised in, right?
Hmm.
So we not, we get in those spaces, and because, you know, we're maybe the first
Hmm.
or one of the
Exactly.
only, it's really, really hard for us to speak up and be bold and
Hmm.
have emotion,
Absolutely.
without fearing the stereotypical perceptions that are falsely put upon us.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
I agree.
So, no, this is really, really good. I didn't know which direction this was going to go.
Yeah.
And, to whomever's listening out here, I hear a gist of the coffee, no cream moment, but I don't hear like the entire thing. I think that professional self-worth, that self-confidence that we all struggle with, I think black women even struggle with it more, is just really a powerful, powerful conversation
Mhm.
that we need to have, and that's actually one of the reasons that I started this podcast is because stuff happens to us. Stuff has been happening to me that I have worked out in therapy as
Mhm.
recently as a year ago since I was 6 years old due to the color of my skin, right? Things that
Absolutely.
I've gone through and I didn't realize, but these are traumatic things that affect us every single day. And a lot of times we just don't have anybody to talk to who truly gets it, right?
Absolutely.
So just really
Absolutely.
wanted to create a space where, yeah, that's something I deal with. That's something I
Mhm.
do. So, you said you're still working on it.
Yes.
So, are you gonna start um requiring people call you Dr. Lydia Bullock?
No, that was just an
Mm-hmm.
example, but
Yeah.
um, of something that I personally struggle with, and I think I struggle with it still right now because I'm young. I just turned 30 this year, just so trying to navigate um success, and everybody defines success differently, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. But
Yeah.
just what that looks like to me right now at this age. But yes, it is something that I am definitely still working on. And it's not just about a title, like it's not that. But self-advocacy, and that's anywhere I go, not just in the workspace, but that's with my family, that's in my peer group, that's in the world in general, being able to advocate for myself. And I think two things can coexist. You can self advocate for yourself and still be humble. And that's something that I had to teach myself. Um, to, not hold back. And I do think it's deep rooted in several things, which all leads back to racism. I'm one of those people, you throw out me a topic, I can lead it back to racism. But I think it comes from our families, and I'm not gonna say our, I'm gonna say mine. Be grateful for what you got, right? So be grateful for what
Yeah.
you have, be grateful for where you are. And I think that puts a pin in self advocacy a little bit, like that causes it, or causes us to, not really advocate, because you're just like, okay, I need to be grateful for where I am. Because there's so many people who don't have these experiences, right? So don't try to advance, don't try to
Absolutely.
move up. But I think that comes from a slavery mentality. We always had to just be grateful, or we always had to be grateful for what was given to us by our masters, right? Like we had to be
Sure.
grateful for the extra food. We had to be grateful for, oh, we get to sleep inside tonight. We don't have to sleep in the field tonight,
Mm-hmm.
right? So being grateful for what you have, that goes back to slavery. It goes back to
Mm-hmm.
racism. And we tend to teach our children that be grateful for what you have. Yes, you can be grateful, but you can still advocate when you know there is something bigger out there for you.
It's like the theory of evolution. Like we
Absolutely.
get a lot of that stuff in utero.
Hmm.
So like it's just in us. So before we close up,
Yes.
I know you said you're just a work in progress, you're still working on
Hmm.
it, but is there one little thing that you've started to try to do, like an exercise or
Hmm.
step to help you with this that you could give us?
For sure. And again, I'm gonna say something about my faith, but I will say right now, I am the most confident that I've ever been in my life right now.
As you should be. Right.
Um, and that just took a lot of realizing of who God created me to be. And I am a woman of faith.
Mm,
So it just goes back to scripture for me, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I was created in God's image, right? So anytime I try to put myself in a box, I put God in a box. And I never want to put God in a box, because we don't serve
mm,
a boxed in God. He can do the impossible, right? So anytime I try to put myself
right.
in a box, I'm putting him in a box and putting a limit on what he has for me. And that's something that I've been telling myself here lately. Lydia, do not put yourself in a box, because you're literally putting limitations on God and what he can do and where he can take you to. Um,
Well, preach. Okay.
So and I can't say, God, I want you to do this, and I'm still sitting in the corner, right? So
Absolutely.
I got to elevate. When God tell me to go up, I have to go up. So really, equipping my ears to what God wants me to do in this season. And that's just it's confidence right now for me. And I know that's a cliche thing to say, but
No,
it's
it's so good.
true.
I'm like, I needed that today. You're like speaking to me, right? Like you are in my
Yeah.
seat right now. So I appreciate it. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you
Of
so much, Lydia.
course.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you? Do you want to like tell them like
Yeah.
your IG or
Mhm.
anything like that?
For sure. So on Instagram, you can find me at Lydia Patrice, and that's LYDIA PATRICE. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. And my LinkedIn tag,
Yeah.
it's Lydia Bullock, LYDIA BULLOCK, comma EDD.
EDD. Not
Yes.
Dr. Lydia Bullock, though. Maybe one day you put it up.
Well, it is still showcasing that I earned a doctorate degree because it has my credentials at the end, just not before. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being on the
Of
podcast.
course. Thank you for
And
having me.
hopefully we'll have you
Oh,
back
I got more
because
stories
this
to
was
share.
good.
So yeah, I
Girl,
can come
I know
back.
you have stories at 30 years old and so wise and
Yes,
so
I
wise.
appreciate it.
Well, thank
Of
you.
course.